Okay, so today on the operating table we have Mr. Ovation. So I'm sad to say that Mr. Ovation has been on this operating table many times. And every time he gets on this operating table I just sort of look at him and scratch my head and wonder, how am I going to fix him? Because the problem with Mr. Ovation is there's no way of putting clamps on him. He has got a round bottom. So, and that's not why he's here to be fixed. He's not here to have his bottom fixed, he's here to have his top fixed. So I believe what happened with this guitar is a disgruntled girlfriend jumped on it first and then threw it out the window of an upstairs apartment, like an upstairs flat or something like that. And it was very badly damaged when it first came here. So I've had this guitar in my possession for about 3 years now, and I keep meaning to fix it, but every time I look at it I just don't even know where to begin. It's very difficult because when you can't put clamps on it, it becomes a real kind of a problem. One of my thoughts was to put them inside a vacuum bag and vacuum clamp them back together, but that runs the risk of breaking the top because the vacuum clamp will put even pressure throughout the whole top of the instrument, including the middle. It'll push the middle down hard enough that it'll actually break it. So that's not really a feasible way of doing it. The next thing that I had thought about was using like a elastic strap to try and clamp them back together, and I might give that a go, but I think what I'm going to try in the first place is super glue. Now, to stick a guitar like this back together with super glue is, it's just not advisable really, to be honest. But my thought is I could stick them bit by bit with super glue and just hold it in place and then squirt it with the accelerator, and that will put it back together. It'll definitely stick it back together, but it's not really ideal. You want something that will come apart again. So I need to talk to the fella about it and find out if he's okay with me doing that. So bear with me, I'm gonna make a phone call. So we just got talking to the guy who owns this, and yeah, he's okay with me to actually glue it together with super glue. So the best way to get the super glue in, once you start sticking this together, the gap that you're going to be putting the super glue in is going to be very tight. And the best way I've found to put it in is with like a little pipette when it comes to stuff like this. But these pipettes are too big on the front. The gap here on the end is too big, so we're going to make it into like a little hairline gap. And there's a wee trick for this. So take your lighter, okay, and you just heat it. Okay, and once it starts to flap a wee bit, you know you're ready. Pull it out and just hold it about there, let it hang. Okay, so we're just letting it cool. That's it, it's not really flapping as much anymore. And just at the thinnest point, just cut it. And that will be a nice way to do it. And you can even do the same thing up here, you know. But it's a handy little trick, I use it all the time. So I'm just checking this surface that I'm going to glue to make sure that it's okay. So right here you can see me scraping around the edge of the guitar with a razor blade. This leaves a really good surface to glue to. It also gets rid of any old glue, and you'll feel it catching and you'll hear it catching on any imperfections in the surface. So sometimes you'll see me working over the same spot and touching it with my finger there. That's because that's what I was feeling. Okay, so I've already got this back section glued from about here to here. What I want to do now, I want to glue in the sides. I want to glue in the waist so that we are nicely aligned. So I'm going to start with this side here first, because I can sort of wiggle the top side to side and I can get this placed exactly right. And I notice when I push over and get this lined up perfectly, we're hanging off the edge on this side quite badly. But we have an opening here where the preamp goes, so I can actually just reach through that and pull this out by hand and line it up that way. So I'll do this section first. so it looks to me that we're too far this way. If you look here, you can see there's a wee bit of overhang, and then on this side there's not enough overhang. So there is a wee bit of flexibility to bend that back into shape. And as I said, this top has moved and twisted because it's been off this guitar for a long time. So once you take a top off a guitar, you should really try to get back on as quick as possible so you don't get these problems. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a dry fit of the neck here and see just how much wiggle room we actually need. Okay. So that's the neck in position, and I really think I would be smart to actually put a wee couple of bits of glue around this while I've got this neck in position, so that I know I can just pop this neck in the future. So before I actually go any further, I really need to take a very close look at this neck and make sure its alignment is right. It doesn't seem like there's any wiggle room in this neck. The way it's designed, it just fits together, and it's like a self-aligning type of joint. So I don't think I need to worry about it too much, but better safe than sorry. Okay, so I'm just looking down this, just eyeballing right down this, and it looks like this low E string is going to be too close to the edge of the neck. So whether we have glued the bridge in a little bit too far that side, I'm not quite sure just yet. That might actually be the case. It does look like there's a wee bit more meat on this side than that side. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to just re-break this joint and just position this back that way a wee bit, because it does look like it's too far that way now that I really examine it. So I'm using a very sharp knife now to just cut through this glue. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just, every time I rock this back and forward, it cuts a little deeper. So I'm just going to keep continuing across here. So I've managed to separate the back here and haven't really caused too much damage. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put a bolt into this neck and get it tightened in so I know it's truly in its position. Okay, Mr. Ovation, please just stand up and bend over. This is going to feel a little uncomfortable. There you go. Right, just a little more. Oh, yeah, I know. And just cough, please. Okay, I can feel it threading in now. Okay, so I have the right size hex key for this. All guitars should have a hole like this in the back of them. Yeah, it looks now like it's in the right position. This looks like it's spot on where it should be. So just to be certain that this neck really is lined up properly, I'm going to run a straight edge down where the E string will be. Okay, let's check the high E as well. Okay, that looks really good. If I can fix this bridge just in this position. Okay, so what I'm doing at the minute is I'm just making sure that I'm getting this top lined up perfectly so that the bridge is going to be in the right location in alignment with the neck. So I've got it glued here with just a very small little dab of glue. So if I need to get this apart again, I can do it. When I hold this side down, this side has a lot of overhang. So what that tells me is this top is more curved than it is right now. So if I'm not careful putting this back together, this might actually be too low and we might end up running into problems here. I reckon if I can get this top glued in correctly, it will help the arch come back into the top. Okay, so the alignment is pretty good, and the amount of glue that I used is very small, so I don't want to be overstressing this top and breaking the glue joint because it's only held on a very small. So the next problem that I'm kind of facing is this part of the guitar is overhanging ever so slightly. So I want to push that back in. What I can also do is I can bend out this side ever so slightly, and maybe that is the easier way to do this. I'm not too sure at the minute. It's just a bit awkward getting it pushed out exactly the right amount. Okay, so I'm getting ready to glue in this part of the guitar, but this part of the guitar is overhanging slightly. So what I've found, just by pressing on this, I can actually warp this side out just by pressing here. This kind of side bulges out a wee bit, and I think I might be able to use that to my advantage for this next part of the glue up. So I've got the clamp held into my vise here, and I'm able to just sort of clamp with enough pressure here just to fine tune this bend here. Okay. It looks like we got it. Just one more check to make sure we're still all in alignment. Yeah, looking good. Okay, seems like we've got it. So we have enough points of this glued now that I'm not too worried about the alignment anymore. So for now, all I'm going to start doing is just going round and gluing this whole body together. Okay. So I'm just going to continue around this gluing, and I'm sure you don't want to watch all of that. I just removed the neck there now, so I did, and all the glue up that I've done so far is pretty much up to this area of the neck. That's the only part that needs to be glued, and by putting the neck in and gluing everything with the neck in place, it has aligned this top end of the body really well, and there's, you know, it's a perfect fit in this neck joint. So I'm happy that that all worked out nicely. So I'm just going to continue on to glue around this section. This method of gluing has worked fairly well. Hasn't been absolutely perfect, but yeah, I'm not worried about this feeling. This is a lifetime fix right here. And I'm surprised at how little glue it took to do this. I'm still using the same little one. So I only filled this once from the glue, and it literally only filled up to here, and I still have half of it left. So one of the really good things about using really thin super glue or CA glue is it runs down into any little gaps, especially if the gap is already very, very tight. Okay, so I need to be careful now. I've got glue on my fingers. I don't want to glue myself to the guitar. Usually whenever I would do this I'd wear rubber gloves, but this one's just quite fiddly. Usually whenever I would be working with super glue I'd wear rubber gloves just to stop myself from gluing myself to the instrument or whatever. So whenever you see me gluing, you'll see me pressing down and then lifting off and pressing down like this. There's two reasons for that. By pressing the gaps together and kind of pumping, and the capillary action works, that sucks the glue down into the joint. But the other thing is it makes sure that I'm not actually sticking myself to the instrument, especially before I put on the accelerator. I've made the mistake in the past of gluing myself to something. It seems like these days it's very common to glue yourself to things like pieces of art in museum stuff. So yeah, weird times we're living in. Okay, so this glue joint has failed right here. Just this one little part has failed. Sometimes when you try to glue these things together, they just don't stick. And it doesn't really matter if that happens. It's not a big deal. Just do it again. Just reapply the glue and glue it again. Okay. Yeah, I can feel myself gluing. I can feel myself getting glued to the instrument now, so I just need to just be careful. Okay. As I'm sitting here editing this video and I'm watching myself gluing this guitar back together using my hands like a set of clamps, it's very unusual and it doesn't look like the right way to do it, but it really worked well on this occasion and I don't think there's really a better way of doing it. So we have a couple of wee glue blobs along the side here. I'm just going to scrape that out. Okay, so that is one glued up Mr. Ovation. Okay, so I'm pleased to say that Mr. Ovation's initial surgery has gone well. He seems to be all glued back together. I'm not seeing any gaps anywhere around the edges here. I have a little bit of clean-up work to do around the edges before I can put the binding back onto this instrument. This instrument is binded with a plastic binding, so it is. So I'll have to see what I've got to do that. So I think I'm going to put the neck on this guitar and just double check that it's playable before I go any further. Okay, so that's the two outside E strings on and it seems to be very good. The string height is really nice. The reveal on each side of the neck, that's the amount of neck you can see on the outside of the string. It's known as the reveal. So the alignment of the string side to side is very, very good. I'm very, very happy with this. So far so good. So I'm gonna make another phone call to my buddy and ask him how much work he wants me to do on this. Does he want this thing playable or does he want it like a brand new guitar? Okay, so at the minute it is kind of playable, but it's buzzy. So the saddle needs to be raised up just slightly, and if you've ever worked on this type of guitar before, you'll know that these come with lots and lots of little shims underneath the saddle so that you can raise or lower the height to whatever you need it to be. So I have the shims here in the shop someplace. I've been looking at them for the last 3 years, so I know that they're definitely here. I just can't find them right at this moment, but I will find them. And it is a wee bit buzzy. It needs to be raised up a little bit more. But 1 or 2 shims under that will fix that problem and that'll be it, playing perfectly. So I'm just going to make this phone call and we'll see what's going to happen next.